Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Balls in Your Face Marketing. Today I am joined by a great friend of mine, Natalie Cutler-Welsh. She is an accomplished public speaker. She is the co-author of If Only They Told Me. She is the founder and chief connector at Go-To-Girl, and she is the impact entrepreneur at Up Your Brave. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julian. So good to be here.
So great to have you as a guest. You and I have been friends from way back. We went to camp, in full disclosure for everybody. However, I suspect that I would have come across your profile anyways because you are all over social media. You've been at that well before I was, in fact. So I just see you everywhere, having a lot of impact, having great success with that. So I wanted to sit down with you, talk about what your mission is, because I know you are an incredible empowerer. As I was asking before whether that's a word, I think we think it is. So tell me a little more, though, from your words, what's your mission? And then let's take it from there.
Yeah, well, the phrase "up your brave" is something that I coined a couple of years ago. And really it is about, at the moment, my mission, raising the state, and I use the word massively raising the state of resilience, health, and happiness on a global scale. And I think that's definitely something that I've been feeling for a while, but it really came to pass with the whole COVID situation. And I started doing this live stream series called Up Your Brave, which was meant to be live events, of course, and also a book. So yeah, it's interesting how we just tweak and pivot, but really my mission is just to help people. My mission since I was 15, like literally since we were friends at Camp Twingo in Huntsville, Ontario, it was to help people do and be more than they ever thought possible. I've been saying that for a long, long time. And I feel like that's still what I'm doing. The people have changed. Like I used to be into the outdoors, and then I wrote my parenting book. So I'm all about motherhood. And then I worked with women entrepreneurs. The people keep changing, but the mission that goes through it is exactly the same. And I do feel like that's what I'm here to do. I'm not an expert in resilience or health or happiness, but it's something I feel really strong about. I've got lots of skills and stories to share around that, but I like to bring, awesome people who can help others do that. So I kind of help the people who help the people.
Yeah, I think you are an excellent example of something that I've referred to as a movement of meaning. We were all sort of told, this story about what the path of our lives should be. You finish high school, try to get good grades so you can get into a good university, choose your domain, go and get a job. And it's opened up this issue of work-life balance, which really led people sort of saying, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I take from one in order to give to the other? And then all of a sudden, I think people have started to look at their lives, and especially as I think you point out through this COVID situation of, well, what gives my life meaning? What's, as Gary Vee actually, I saw him say the other day, is a great example. It's like, so what if you're earning $400,000 because your mother made you become a lawyer? If you didn't want to do that, you've lost, And so I think more and more people, especially again through this current circumstance, are thinking about, well, who is important to me? What is important to me? How do I achieve a life that is, so I won't use the word balance, but integrates all of those aspects of your life into one sort of box that makes sense and makes people happier, healthier, etc. So how are you doing that? How are you achieving that?
Yeah, well, one thing that you mentioned there, you said the W word, which is want. Like if you make $400,000 because your mom wanted you to be a lawyer. And one of the things I've noticed in my journey and all these people I've been working with over the past 15 years is that some people tend to live their lives in one of four zones. Okay. So a lot of people are living their life in the disconnected zone where they're just going through the motions, going to work, coming home, making dinner, having a marriage, whatever. But they're disconnected from it. The next zone is called the should zone. So that's maybe like, I should be a lawyer because my mom wants me to. So people in the should zone are really guided by kind of duty and obligation rather than empowered choices. And when you're living your life in the should zone, quite often, it leads to you putting everyone else first and not really following your own path as such. The next zone is the frustration zone, where we're actually starting to feel angst. We're feeling frustration that this is not working for me. And this is where it gets dangerous because it starts to affect not only our relationships, our work, colleagues and everything, but also our health and wellness, our health and well-being as well. where we want to get to is what I call the impact zone. And in the impact zone, it's where you're literally living life on your own terms, your empowered choices, intentional actions, you're doing what you want. And so when I talk about up your brave, I say in order to get there to the impact zone, you got to up your brave. You got to like not care completely what everyone else thinks. You got to dust yourself off. You've got to reconnect with what you truly want. And I think is the key to happiness, is trying to get over there into the impact zone.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree with you more than that. And that was, really this whole show started in a way like that. I didn't really have a huge desire myself to put myself out there, but I saw that this is the way social media was going, that I better do that, created this show. And as I did it, I sort of found my voice more. And again, really just was being more myself. It was a reflection of my tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. And the more I was myself, was true to who I was, the better things came. Just beget greater things.
Yeah.
And what I've sort of come to the conclusion of is, for me, success and happiness are sort of the interchangeable definition. And it's the optimal integration of being. In other words, what you say, what you think, what you do, your work, your play, your family, when it's all well integrated, and it's not an easy thing to do, and nor are you ever perfectly integrated, but the more you can try to align that all behind one common purpose, one common meaning, you're on the right track. I'm really kind of interested by these four domains. So how does one, certainly for the first three at least, how does one push through each of those?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and of course we can fall back. Like, we can be in the impact zone and then something will happen and all of a sudden we're back in the should zone. So, but what we want to consistently try to stay in the majority of the time is the impact zone, for sure. So things like, even if in the should zone, you're in the should zone when you're literally saying words like, I should do this, I need to do that. And so even just making a subtle change and using what I call empowered languaging. So I'll be writing a text, right? I'll be like writing a text and I'll be like, I just need to, and I'll go delete, delete, delete. And I'll replace need with want. Like I want. I just want to pick Jonah up from hip hop and then I can meet you for coffee, instead of I need to pick Jonah up, right? It's one word. 4 letters, massive shift in energy and expectation around that. So I literally catch myself. So my tip really to get out of the zone you don't want to be in is you got to catch yourself in those micro moments, even if it's mid-text or mid-sentence. Just say it again. And sometimes I'll say to my clients, and even sometimes to my friends, when they're like, oh, I really need to, and they'll roll their eyes, they'll do this, oh, in the body language, I really need to do this. And I go, need or want? And they're like, it makes you think about it. Or some people say, oh, I really need to do this. I say, how about I'm ready? Like, I really need to launch my website. Like, how about I'm ready to launch my website? Well, maybe they're not ready, but changing the word out can make, that's one easy step to help you shift into the next zone.
Cool. These are great tips. This is great. This is what I love about doing the show, is extracting this kind of information from people like yourself. Now, a lot of what you're saying, some might say falls into the category of mindset. And we hear a lot about that. And there's a lot of sort of words that I see get bandied around. And I'm kind of torn on this, because on one hand, there is a lot to be said about mindset, mindfulness. I do believe that we kind of manifest our own realities, and that people who are stuck in those zones and rolling their eyes and, oh, I got this to do and I got that to do. Well, okay, yeah, that's how you think or how you look at things is probably very important. My personal take on that too certainly is, and based in large part by Jim Still, who was once on my show a few years back, was he prefers habits over mindset, because habits don't require willpower. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of the word mindset and how this is in some ways different?
Yeah, well, I mean, mindset is awesome. It's so crucial. I talk a lot about what I call the 3 H's. So your head, your heart, and your hustle. And whether you're in business or not, it's still relevant. So the head is the mindset piece. It's kind of, and a lot of that is, I say, what are you feeding yourself? Like, literally, what you consuming? Like, what are you reading? What are you scrolling? What are you watching on the news? You know, during COVID, some people watch the news every night religiously. Well, no wonder you're scared, and no wonder you're freaking out. So
Yeah.
part of it is, what are you feeding yourself? And that's mindset, but that's also food and who are you hanging out with? What are you feeding yourself in terms of other people's negative thoughts and energy and personalities and things like that? So that's the H for the head. The next one is heart. And so one of my favorite sayings I say all the time is, say what you want. So in terms of getting to the impact zone, a lot of the time I feel like it's because people aren't saying what they want. And as a result, they're not doing what they want. They're doing what they said they would do, or what they think they should do, or what they've always done. And so the H part, and you know, I always touch my heart here, is like really connecting to what is it that I actually want. And like, whether it's your business and you feel like you've lost your mojo, well, it's like, go back to the why, you know, go back to why you're doing it, the impact you want to have, the people you love working with. And if you're not I use a lot of business examples because that's my domain, but if you're not in business, it can even just be in life. Like, what are you excited about? What do you love doing? You might be like, oh my God, I love, like me, I love singing in the kitchen. I love singing, but it's like, if you notice you're not doing the things that bring you joy, like how can you change your habits, change your life and your schedule to do more of what you love doing? It sounds simple. And then the third one, of course, is hustle, because I'm very much into action. So it's like, you can have 1,000 plans, you can have a calendar on the wall with tons of sticky notes, but like, if you don't actually do anything and take empowered action and make intentional choices, then you're going to be stuck in one of those 3 zones. So that's really the 3 H's, I think, includes the mindset piece.
And certainly in my experience too, you know, what I think for the first 2, if you have those 2 in great alignment, again, if those are well integrated, the hustle comes naturally, right? I mean, for me, I know I'm happy when I'm in flow, right? Like, you just, you know, I'm working, if it's doing something that I love, I don't even recognize the passage of time. I am hustling. I just don't even feel it or know it. So it doesn't require, again, that willpower. It's just because because again, your head and your heart are in alignment behind a common purpose, a common mission. That's a really interesting distinction too, though, that between the sort of the head and the heart. One of the things that I kind of feel sometimes is that people kind of they're not necessarily weighted appropriately, right? Emotion often sort of takes up all this space, whatever I can fit into my screen here, you know, whereas, you know, logic is kind of this, right? And so I think sometimes in a way it's really for people to think things through. I don't know whether you feel that, and both are valid. I don't mean by any means to devalue the heart. If anything, that's a very important thing to keep happy, to make sure that you're doing what it is that you love, that makes you happy. But sometimes I think we get too caught up in emotion and allow emotions to drive our decisions.
Well, I think a lot of the time, you know, in terms of some people that are more a tendency to be analytics, right? So more of the questioners, you know, Gretchen Rubin talks about the 4 tendencies. So the questioners, or if you're using Myers-Briggs, you know, it's all different, but the people that the analytics, the data people, the perfectionists, they would be more likely to think, well, I'm just going to, you know, make a list of pros and cons and make a decision, or wait till the website is absolutely perfect before I click go. So a lot of people get stuck in their head, I feel, if they have a tendency to be more of a perfectionist, analytic, data type person, whereas other people might be more like, I'm more of a driver, I'm more of a like, let's just do it, like let's just get a move on. So I feel like some people like me, I'm like, if you don't love it, don't do it. So I only do what I love. So I don't get stopped by the thoughts, but at the same time, sometimes I probably act too quickly. And maybe it's like, hey, if I just slowed down and did less things, or maybe thought them through a little bit more, it would be more efficient or whatever. So there's pros and cons, but I think people tend to go one of 2 ways.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been somebody who believes in act now, ask for forgiveness later. You remind me a bit about sort of a Seth Godin TED talk where he talks about the lizard brain, and that's exactly it. You know, people have this, they have a vision. Okay, I'm going to build my website, and then the closer they get to launch, all of a sudden they have this sort of panic. They go into panic mode, right? As we would, the sort of lizard brain that automatically reacts to fear. So sometimes I think it is just a matter of pushing yourself past that.
Yeah, and the other day I had this bit of an insight when I was talking to some people on my team about the personality types and all the things. And I said, at the end of the day, you can call it perfectionism, you can call it fear of failure, you can call it imposter syndrome. I think people just don't want to look bad.
For sure.
They're just like, and so like another friend of mine recently said, I just think some people just aren't really resilient right now in the post-COVID or just generally. And I said, you know what? I don't think it's resilience. I think they are resilient. I just think they're scared to shine. And one of the things I do is I actually help people to shine. Like that is the wording that I use for the people I work. I work with people who are ready to shine. They just don't know how. They want to be on stage or TV or in the media. They just don't know how. And so I feel like a lot of people are scared to shine. And here in New Zealand where I live, we talk a lot about tall poppy. A lot of people, like, you don't want to make it look like you think you're better than everyone else. So people are scared to shine. Well, here I come, Canadian Kiwi, 23 years of my life in Canada, 23 years of my life in New Zealand. So I'm this interesting extrovert, Kiwi by blood, Canadian by, growing up, combination. And I'm like, hey everyone, let's all shine together. And it's interesting because some people just are scared to shine or scared to say what they want because they don't want to look bad, scared to publish that website because they don't want to look bad. I think it sounds pretty like a sweeping statement, but I think it's pretty accurate.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's one of my major criticisms of certainly in the early stages of social media is this sort of superficial presentation of self. Exactly, that people just, it's curated. It's only like, I'm only going to show my best moments. I don't think it makes anyone more, it doesn't make you more endearing. I think if anyone, it's when you actually expose those flaws, your weaknesses, your human side, that people start to say, oh, thank you. Like, I relate to that. Right. I don't know if you've experienced it that way too, but totally. So exactly. I think putting yourself out there, flaws and all, to this day, I mean, even with this show, I as I said, I don't do a ton of prep. I come up with a theme. I let the conversation go. I still have my ums and my ers, and there's tons of things that I wish I could do better. But I've also just come to just accept it and just say, you know what, this is me. This is who I am. This is how I talk. My mind goes in a million places. So be it. Hopefully I get decent conversations out of it, and then I'm happy.
Yeah, because imagine if you didn't up your brave and do your balls in your face show, and you were like, oh, but I say too many ums and ahs, so I just won't do it. All the people that would never get to hear all the episodes. So good on you.
That's right. And again, there's just wealth of information and great tips like you've been providing today. So tell me a bit about your journey, about how you've gotten yourself out there. Because like I said, I mean, you've done a really good job. Tell me your sort of tips in terms of social media, branding, marketing. How have you done that for yourself?
Sure. Well, I mean, coming back to it, this is one of the phrases I say, I don't want to be famous. I just want to change the world. So my goal is not to be famous. Like, I mean, hey, I do love the stage and the limelight. That's no problem. But that's not my goal. My goal, even when I speak, is not for people to come up and go, oh my God, you're amazing. My goal is for them to say, oh my God, I didn't realize I live in the frustration zone. And I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do about it? Take some action. So I just want people to change their own lives. Again, I don't want to be a savior. Like I used to want to save a million marriages. Like that was something I wanted to do a few years ago off the back of my book. It was like, I was really passionate about it. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to save and rescue people. I just want them to like empower them to do what they need to do to get to the impact zone. So in terms of how I've done the social media thing, very organically, very, because I used to teach social media. That's how my Go-To Girl business started when I was trying to promote my book, which was also a podcast, and just doing stuff on Pinterest back in the day, and Facebook, and yeah, just doing that thing on social media. But I think for me, my thing, I've got this picture on my wall. I know I could spin the camera. It's got a bunch of women. Maybe you can see it there, like a photo.
Yep,
anyway,
yep,
a whole bunch of women. So running events with women and bringing women together. So one of my things is courage, connections, and collaboration. So helping people to realize it's not about competition, it's about co-opetition, which means you might be a fitness instructor and you might be into Pilates and whatever. You guys aren't rivals. Like you both want to empower people to be healthy and well. So why not like cross, promote or refer people or do a collab? So I've always kind of had that philosophy of like, it wasn't just about me. It was about bringing people together, inviting them to step up and be seen and heard on a bigger level so that they too can change the world. And I think a lot of people do want to change the world for the good.
Oh, absolutely. That's certainly my impression. And this relates back to what I was saying about the sort of movement of meaning, is that people want impact. That I think
Yes.
without meaning and purpose, that's what leads to sort of depression or all kinds of things. Like, and it doesn't have to be exactly some grand objective. It could just be, if your children, for example, are your life and your goal is to I just want to be the best mom and raise the best kids in the world, so be it. Then focus on that. I'm quite, and I can so relate to what you're saying about, in the times when in particular, let's say gone and done some public speaking, there's just something so fulfilling about that moment of when somebody else just has that aha moment, right? And they come up and they say, oh my gosh, that one, it's not exactly like, oh my God, you're amazing. It's when they say, when you said this, a light bulb went off, or I realized this. And that again, it's like, wonderful. I'm so glad I did this event. I impacted one person, if that's the case, and so be it. That made my day. It's the best feeling ever.
Completely.
Yeah. So, so tell me, I guess, first of all, tell us how do people reach you, find you, and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah, sure. So I've got my website, nataliecutlerwelsh.com, which is a little bit hard to spell. No hyphen. And I'm just about to launch, so it'll hopefully be up soon, upyourbrave.com as well. And so I have a video series, which you feature in one of my episodes, of course, that people can check out. So a whole ton of free content, which is inspirational and educational. And then in terms of working with me, I have this thing called the Amplify membership. So that's where it's basically speakers or business owners who want to use their voice. So it's all about the voice to be seen and heard on a bigger level, whether it be on the stage, or in person, presenting online, or in the media. So I'm kind of a confidence and visibility mentor. I call myself the Up Your Brave mentor to help people up your brave in various aspects of their life. So that's one thing. I do a little teeny weeny bit of one-on-one mentoring. And then I actually have a doTERRA team, which is the wellness side of my business. So it's kind of amplify your wellness. And that's really because I had all these overwhelmed moms who were totally exhausted, completely living in the should zone. And that had all these overworked entrepreneurs that were living in the frustration zone because they were working so hard, not making the income they wanted or having the impact they wanted as well. So I can kind of help women. I have a team of 4,000 now, so I can help, it is predominantly women, running their doTERRA business, or usually adding doTERRA to their existing offering of whatever they might be doing, if they're a life coach or a yoga teacher or a speaker or whatever, and just getting that residual income, because especially post-COVID, we all know having multiple revenue streams is a super smart strategy.
Yeah. What are your experiences, by the way, right now with people in COVID and so on? What's the major sort of barriers to or frustrations that people are having? What are they doing properly? What are they not doing properly?
Yeah, so we are in New Zealand. So remember, my accent is Canadian, but I'm in New Zealand, and this is where we had all the levels. So we're in level 1 now. We just went to level 1 about 2 weeks ago. And that means now we can go out and about, and we can go to have gatherings of 100 people. And so people can now have the weddings or the funerals or the events. People are still very, very cautious about doing live events, about putting dates in the calendar and things like that. I am a speaker. I did have a few things pushed back to November. I did have a lot of friends who saw all their income disappear because they only do speaking. That's what I'm talking about, the multiple revenue streams. But what we've seen here is a little bit of fear, a little bit of conspiracy theory, a little bit of wake up call, for people going, wow, like I actually never really think about my wellness. But so now the wellness side of it, people are really taking their wellness more seriously, which is awesome. There's a real mixed bag. It's probably similar in Canada, I imagine, but kids are back at school. Everything's just kind of normal, but totally not normal at the same time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've actually watched a number of clips of your prime minister, and I'm endlessly impressed by her. I keep on wishing
Thank
that
you.
she would come over here to Canada and take over for us a little bit. I watched her during an earthquake, just totally keep her cool and calm. And she's just so real and human and personable. And you guys absolutely are a great example. If you look at different nations and how they've managed the situation, New Zealand seems to be one of the best.
Yeah, they're doing really well. I mean, one of our Achilles heels is that we are very reliant on international tourism as one of our main industries. And when that gets, when doors get closed, it really affects a lot of people. There's a lot of families, obviously, that rely on that. Obviously, there's also people like everywhere in the restaurant business and the event business and things like that. So it just hits people. It hits people differently, for sure.
Yeah, and then you guys are also big travelers yourselves. I mean, it's actually been I've been very impressed over the last few years, the quality and caliber of professionals, entrepreneurs, marketers coming out of Australia and New Zealand in particular, has just blown me away. My mentor in Facebook advertising, as you know, Kat Howe, is a New Zealander as well, and she's enormously successful. So, my thought behind it was, well, okay, it makes sense to me in the sense, okay, you guys are maybe a lot more isolated over there in the world. When you want to go and travel, it's a long way to go. So that's why, the Aussies go on long walkabouts, because once you're doing it, you may as well commit to it for a longer period of time. But I think there's just this huge need there to connect with the rest of the world, and all of this new technology with social media, with the internet, has now allowed them to actually do that in ways that they never could, and they embraced it faster and better than a lot of people did.
And even growing up, for me, like, my parents are Kiwis, remember? So all my whole life, all my friends are always like, oh, your parents must be from Australia. And I'm like, no, they're from New Zealand. And then everyone always says, oh, I've always wanted to go to New Zealand one day. Like, how many times have I heard that my whole life? And it's true. It is a destination, like a dream destination for so many people. And also now, as you know, we're really big in the film industry. They just opened doors. They're filming the second Avatar. And obviously they did all the Lord of the Rings and everything here. Right. So there's these new, like anything, there's going to be new industries that are already there that will grow. There'll be other industries that we were totally reliant on that we can shuffle around. We have a great, there's an essential oil called Douglas fir. Well, it's made here in New Zealand from wilding pines, which are pine trees that get spread just in the wind. And then what happens is they grow, and they are so acidic that they kill the native bush. And so they're actually a pest. So what's happened is someone took a problem. This is a classic business model, right? They took a problem, they found a solution. They pull out all the pines, they like distill them and whatever, and make this gorgeous essential oil that they now sell to doTERRA, who then sells it as one of their main products. So I feel like we're going, like New Zealand, like all the countries, will probably just have to, navigate with the times, and some things will grow and some things will shrink, and hopefully everyone will be all right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, you guys seem to be working your way through the COVID crisis exceptionally well. I just see nothing but impressive people more and more. I'm sure it's because you just keep coaching more and more New Zealanders.
Well, part of the reason I have my mission is because we do have a lot of problems. We do have a very high suicide rate, one of the highest in the one of the highest in the world, I think, and also a high child poverty rate as well. So we have no shortage of problems like most countries, but some things we do well, and some things have just been more highlighted as a result of COVID, I think.
That's really interesting, because I didn't know that you guys had a high suicide rate. But I mean, it's funny because this is an issue that I've observed. We know that internationally, I mean, the rates of depression and mental illness are going up. I have blamed, again, even though I'm in marketing and I'm in social media, I'm very critical of it because of I think there's a lot of great advantages. I love the fact that I can have this conversation with you. We're able to use our cameras and talk, and on what would have been a very expensive long distance phone call when you and I were kids. But exactly as we were saying earlier about that sort of superficial presentation of self, especially for young children, I think when they see, nothing but wonderful pictures of all of their peers always appearing to be happy and and on vacation and so forth, and then their own personal internal lives don't align with what they're doing. And we're human, we can't help but kind of compare, right? So then what happens is that creates this sort of sense of, well, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with my life, and I blame it for that. I don't know what the solution is for necessarily, other than to really encourage people to use social media in a constructive, productive way, in the way that I think you and I are trying to do.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, people can easily scroll through. They see someone going to Fiji for a holiday, which is what a lot of Kiwis normally do in July, and they'll be like, we should be going to Fiji, or they'll be in the should zone about it,
Yeah.
or they'll be really angry about it. They'll be in the frustration zone about it. So there is obviously all those things, but there's so many factors, of course, involved, including that whole tall poppy thing that I mentioned before. Like, people in New Zealand, we have a "she'll be right, mate." I don't know if you've heard this phrase, she'll be right, mate. What that means is like, oh, it's all good, it's no problem. Yeah. Like, where people don't talk about their problems, they kind of just shove them down, which results in health problems, but also emotional health problems as well. So there's a lot of things at play. Again, I'm not an expert in suicide or depression, but it's something I care in terms of the heart. I get so fired up about it because I'm like, come on, New Zealand, we can do better. Like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. And that's part of my mission. Help people to just be more resilient, healthy, and happy, so our stats change.
Right. No, and and this is what I love about what you're doing, and I think this is, it's the case for me in a lot of respects as well. It's sort of like, I'm not an expert in philosophy, and yet I'll talk about that, or suicide or any of that stuff. I have a degree in psychology that doesn't really get me that far. I don't have a master's, don't have a PhD, but
I've got a master's. Right there.
There you go. But I think you're right that the thing is that it's about, taking from what experience you have. We all have some, and this is the thing, is really finding your personal value, what your story is, being clear about what your mission is, and then going out and talking about it and sharing it. And we are all humanity is really rooted in our stories. We love stories. Everything is stories at the end of the day, really. And you have a story to tell. And that I believe that for just about everybody. So it's about tapping into that mission and purpose. How do people get your book?
Well, it's interesting you said that, because you were just saying how you're not an expert in this and you're not an expert in that. And I said, well, you know what? You and I can share the same tagline that Jackie and I share, which is, we're not the experts. We're the best friends you never knew you had.
Ooh, I like that one. Very
so
good.
They can get that on my NatalieCutler-Welsh.com. I actually have I have a shop page. I have a parenting shop, so it's there. I have a business shop with a few other products, programs, and people. And then I have a wellness shop as well. So those are probably the best places to look.
Okay, awesome. Well, I will most certainly be sure to put links to your website above or below, and anything else like that, links to the book, and maybe your LinkedIn profile as well, whatever you like, and Facebook for your Up Your Brave show. Natalie, this has been so much fun to catch up with you.
I know, it's been so awesome. I also, by the way, have a free Facebook group, so I'll give you the link to that too.
Excellent. Yes, we'll share it. Or up below, or down, or up above or below. Check them out. Natalie, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's really great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. And my little phrase that I like to say, I'll share with you guys just to finish with, is remember, whatever you do, to up your brave. So up your brave, say what you want, and make it happen.